Good afternoon and welcome to the 57th day of the Washington Legislature. I am Leslie Cushman and we have some special guests here today on the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability weekly live stream. Sonia, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Sonia Joseph, the mother of Giovanni Joseph McDade and a member of WCPA. Thank you for having me.
Oops. Anoka, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Inoka Herat. I am the Police Practices and Immigration Counsel at the ACLU of Washington, and we are members of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Thanks so much for having me.
It's really great both of you could make time out of your day to join us today. We're going to talk about House Bill 1513 today, which is called Traffic Safety for All. And Anoka, maybe you could give us a quick sketch of what House Bill 1513 does.
Sure. This is an excellent bill, and it does three things. The first thing is that it creates a grant fund program, which is really a community fund where low-income drivers who need help getting their cars into compliance, so things like fixing taillights and repairs and maybe even being able to cover the costs of expired tabs, et cetera, can apply to their municipalities to get funds to help fix their vehicles. And that's an alternative to the current system of fees and fines, because if someone can't afford to fix their taillight, they can't afford the ticket that comes with it. And so this fund tries to actually meet people where they're at and get safer vehicles on the road. The second part of the bill is around enforcement, and it deprioritizes these non-moving violations, which are equipment failures or regulatory things like expired tabs, because they don't have to do with safety on the roads. And Washington right now is experiencing an increase in traffic accidents and fatalities on the road. There was just one this morning. And so this bill, what it does is it focuses resources, policing resources and enforcement resources on the things that are actually causing those safety concerns. So moving violations for things like DUI or speeding or not wearing seatbelts, et cetera, and deprioritizes the kinds of equipment failures and expired tabs, those kinds of things that don't really lead to safety issues on the road. And then the third part of the bill is around data collection, so that we can see across the state who is being stopped, why they're being stopped, and what the outcomes of those stops are.
Thank you, Anoka. That's a really important legislation. So the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability is centered on families who've been impacted by police violence and have lost loved ones to police violence. Sonia, how about you tell our listeners why this bill is important to the families of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability?
You know, most people who are pulled over, it's usually disproportionate, and it really impacts people of color. You know, we could turn on the news right now and someone's getting pulled over and it results in the use of force and death. But far too often, many of our families in the coalition have had these negative impacts on them and have lost loved ones to the use of force after a traffic stop. And so the importance of this bill to our families is to reduce these stops and to reduce discriminatory policing amongst Black and brown people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I know you're going to talk a little bit later about your own experience. Anoka, what are some of the misconceptions about this bill, and where is the opposition coming from?
There are some misconceptions around traffic stops in general. We hear from opposition and people in law enforcement that these traffic stops are necessary to fight crime, but that's just not what the data shows. These traffic stops are ineffective at fighting crime. They're not the way we're finding guns or fentanyl or fighting crime, violent crime at all. A study of Washington State Patrol stops, something like 11 million stops, found less than 1% of those stops had any sort of contraband whatsoever. So that means that 99.7% of these stops don't find anything at all, and yet the impact on particular communities of color is is intense. There is racial profiling in these stops. There's racial profiling and racial discriminatory and disproportionate stops against Black and brown folks, particularly when it comes to searches as well. Black and brown drivers are twice as likely to be searched as white drivers, even though it's more likely that officers find contraband on white drivers. I mean, that shows some of the racial disparity in these stops and searches. And so this bill really addresses that. And it is actually more effective at stopping the kinds of fatalities on the roads that we're seeing in other areas where they've deprioritized these low risk stops. What they found was DUIs actually increased. And so increasing DUIs increased and racial disparity decreased. So by prioritizing high risk behavior for stops, we find that helps keep our roads safe and reduces racial disparity. It's a win-win for Washington.
That is a win-win for Washington. That's why everyone should support House Bill 1513. Sonia, your son, Giovanni, was killed in the city of Kent after a traffic stop. If this law had been in place, there's a good chance that Giovanni would be alive today. Oh, I have to tell you, we're so disappointed that the city of Kent opposes this bill. And I think they had to pay you over a $4 million settlement for the harm they caused you and your family. What do people in Kent need to know about House Bill 1513, and what do you need them to do?
Well, this bill is going to keep people safe, and yes, it would have kept my son safe had it been in effect in 2017. Well, the people in Kent need to push back and let Chief Padilla and Mayor Dana Ralph know that their opposition to House Bill 1513 is wrong.
That is exactly right. What we have learned, and what you know more than I do, is that stops for expired tabs leave people feeling humiliated and targeted and scared. And this undermines trust in government. We even have learned that there's a study that says it reduces voter participation because they don't trust government. So that is wrong. And government resources and police resources should be used to lift people up and to keep people safe. And this is just the opposite. Anoka, we just have a couple more days to get bills off the floor into the other house. Where is House Bill 1513 in the legislative process?
That's right. Right now, the bill is what's called House Rules. It's in the Rules Committee, and so it needs to be pulled for a floor vote before 5 p.m. on Wednesday, March 8th. And so it's a critical time right now to encourage and urge your lawmakers to support this bill, to vote it out of the House, and to bring it to a floor vote.
Excellent. We're going to just do a real specific call to action. So Anoka, what do people need to do? What's the specific thing?
Email and call your lawmakers, your representatives. You have two, and tell them to pull this bill to a floor vote and vote this bill out of the House. Vote 1513 out of the House.
Excellent. Sorry for interrupting you. I see we have some instructions right on the screen. Thanks for that. Sonia, let's talk about what you think people should be doing for our call to action.
Well, most importantly, police should be focusing on moving violations like speeding, DUI, and distracted driving. So what people need to do is they should email their mayors and police chiefs and sheriffs and let them know you support 1513 and tell them to back off on the opposition to House Bill 1513.
That's right. What we have learned so all of us, Anoka and Sonia and I, have been working in the legislative process for years. We actually have a lot of experience, and we see that local governments have a huge influence on the state legislative process. You'll see that your mayors and city councils pass resolutions. They hire lobbyists. They work with their police chiefs to give testimony, and they actually have a lot of influence. And sometimes we agree with them, but a lot of times we don't agree with them. And we don't agree with their opposition to House Bill 1513. So if you could let your legislators know you support it, and get in touch with your city councils and mayors, and get in touch with the sheriffs and tell them this is really important to keep people safe. I really want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we will be back with another update soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.